Ever clicked around a new piece of software and thought, this doesn't feel right?
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, today we're diving deep into the crucial step that aims to prevent exactly that feeling. User acceptance testing, or UAT.
Right, UAT. So we're taking a closer look. Think of it as the final sanity check for software.
A sanity check, I like that.
Yeah, performed by the people who will actually use it,
Yeah.
before it goes live.
Exactly. It's sort of the last line of defense, making sure the software truly meets the needs of the client or, well, the end user.
Mm.
Our mission today is to unpack why UAT is so vital and how it works, drawing from the insights in the material you shared so you can understand its core purpose and process.
Okay, so let's start with the big question. Why? Why is UAT even necessary? I mean, doesn't software go through loads of other tests?
That's a really good point. You'd think, maybe hope, that by the time software is built, it's exactly what everyone wanted.
You would hope.
But here's where things get, well, interesting. Developers build based on their understanding, their interpretation of requirements.
Right, their technical view.
And even with super clear instructions, that interpretation can sometimes miss the mark when it hits the real world.
Yeah, because developers often focus on the how, the technical side. Right?
Exactly. While users care about the what and the why, how does this software actually solve my business problem?
So UAT is that critical bridge. It connects the build to the actual need.
Perfectly put. The initial idea, those early requirements, can definitely be seen through different lenses. What a developer thinks is a logical flow might just not match the day-to-day reality for the business user.
And let's be real, things change during a project, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. New ideas pop up, plans get tweaked, and sometimes those changes maybe don't get communicated perfectly back to the dev team.
So the final product might not quite line up with what the client is expecting now.
Precisely. UAT is where the client essentially says, okay, let's see if this actually works for me. I've definitely felt that as a user. A feature seemed obvious to the developers, maybe, but felt completely backwards to me.
So UAT really helps bridge that potential lost in translation gap.
It does. And if we kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the software development lifecycle, UAT isn't just tacked on at the end, it has a specific place.
It's a very important one. Our sources put it right at the end of the testing cycle.
Right, after all the technical stuff like functional testing, making sure features work on their own.
Integration testing, seeing if the parts work together.
And system testing, looking at the whole system, all that behind-the-scenes work should ideally be solid by the time you get to UAT.
And there's this concept, the V model, which illustrates it really well.
Ah, yes, the V model.
Imagine a V. One side is planning and requirements, figuring out what to build. The other side is testing. UAT sits right at the top of that testing side.
Directly across from
those initial business requirements. It shows how UAT directly validates if you actually built what was originally asked for.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense visually. So if UAT is this final check, what are the specific goals? What are users trying to achieve?
The main goal, and the sources really highlight this, is validating the entire business process, start to finish.
A whole workflow.
Exactly. Can the software handle real-world tasks, the way users actually do their jobs?
So it's not about hunting for every tiny visual glitch. Like, is this button pixel perfect?
Not primarily, no. UAT isn't focused on minor cosmetic things or typos or the deep system checks. Those should have been caught earlier.
Okay.
The focus is squarely on, do the core business functions work as expected from the user's perspective?
Right.
Think of it like this. UAT testers are basically acting like regular users. They don't need to know the code.
The inner workings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're looking at inputs, output, does it behave like it should from their point of view? It's a form of black box testing.
Black box testing. You mean they don't need to see inside the box?
Precisely. Like testing a car by driving it. You don't need to know exactly how the engine works internally.
You just care if it starts, goes, and stops.
Right. Does it do the job? UAT testers evaluate based on interaction and results, not the underlying code.
That makes perfect sense. You wouldn't want, I don't know, the marketing manager worrying about a slightly off-center logo if the whole lead capture system is broken.
Exactly. And to make sure this testing is actually relevant, it has to happen in a special environment.
Okay. Not the live system, obviously.
No, definitely not. It's a separate environment designed to be as close as possible to the real, live production system, often using realistic data, too.
Realistic data. But what about privacy?
Good question. It's usually altered, scrambled, or anonymized to protect privacy. but it still reflects the type of data the system will handle.
Got it. So who are the key people actually doing this UAT? It sounds like it has to be the folks who will use the software day in, day out.
You nailed it. The main players are the client and the actual end users, the people who deeply understand the business processes the software is meant to support.
Okay. Now, before they can even start clicking around, there must be some groundwork, right? Some prerequisites. What needs to be ready?
Oh, absolutely. You can't just jump into UAT. There are several essential prerequisites. First, the detailed business requirements need to be available, signed off, ideally.
The yardstick, basically.
Exactly. You need to know what you're measuring against.
Yeah,
Second, the application code itself needs to be fully developed, all the features built.
makes sense.
And like we said, the earlier testing phases, unit, integration, system testing, they must be completed.
You don't want users finding basic bugs.
No, that wastes their valuable time. The sources are quite specific. There
Hmm.
should be no showstopper, high, or even medium defects left over from system testing.
Only minor cosmetic things are maybe okay.
Maybe. Very minor. Also, regression testing, checking that recent fixes haven't broken anything else that needs to be done with no major issues found.
That's a pretty high bar before users even see it.
It needs to be. Any bugs found earlier need to be fixed and, crucially, retested to confirm the fix works.
Okay, what else?
You need that traceability matrix we mentioned earlier, linking requirements to tests, completed for all testing stages. The UAT environment itself has to be fully set up and stable.
Ready to go.
And finally, there's usually a formal confirmation, like a sign-off, from the system testing team saying, okay, it's ready for UAT.
Wow, okay. That's quite the checklist. So, assuming all those boxes are ticked, how does the actual UAT process unfold? Step by step.
Right, the execution. It typically starts with a really careful analysis of those business requirements again. The UAT testers dive deep.
They need to really understand the business goals.
Absolutely. Your sources mention key documents they draw from, the project charter, business use cases, process flow diagrams, the business requirements document, BRD, system requirements specification, SRS, all that core stuff.
Okay, so using those, they figure out what specifically to test.
Exactly. Step 2 is creating the UAT plan. This is the strategy document.
The roadmap for UAT.
Pretty much. It outlines the approach, entry-exit criteria like we discussed, how they'll handle test scenarios and cases, timelines, resources, everything.
Then they start designing the actual tests.
Yes, they identify test scenarios, which are like high-level business tasks, create a new customer order, for example.
Okay.
And from those scenarios, they develop detailed, step-by-step test cases. Step 1, log in. Step 2, navigate to orders page. Step 3, click new order. You get the idea. Those business use cases are super helpful here.
And the data, we talked about realistic data.
Crucial step, preparing that test data. Needs to be production-like, but safe, as we said. The testers also really need to understand how data flows through the system to make the test meaningful.
Right, so they're not just testing isolated screens, but the actual flow of information.
Precisely. Then comes the main event,
Mm.
running the tests.
The execution phase.
Testers follow the test cases, record the actual results versus the expected results. If something's wrong, they report it, usually through a defect tracking system. The developers fix it, then the testers retest that specific function or workflow.
And tools can help manage all this.
Oh yeah, test management tools are often used to track test cases, execution progress, results, defects, keeps everything organized.
Okay. And then hopefully after all that testing and fixing and retesting.
The goal is achieved. Confirm the business objectives are met. Business analysts or the UAT testers themselves will typically provide a formal sign-off.
The green light for production.
Essentially, yes, saying this product meets our business needs, it's ready. And the outputs from this whole phase, the deliverables, are usually things like the test plan, the scenarios and cases, the test results logs, and the defect log.
So when is it officially done? What are those exit criteria for saying, okay, UAT complete, let's go live?
Good question. There are usually a few key conditions. First, no critical defects left open. Anything that stops core business functions must be fixed.
Makes sense. Can't go live if it's fundamentally broken.
Right. Second, the business processes themselves have to be working satisfactorily. Users need to feel confident they can actually do their jobs with this software.
User confidence is key.
Absolutely. And finally, there's typically a formal UAT sign-off meeting. All of the key stakeholders get together, review the results, and formally agree that UAT is complete and the system is ready for deployment.
It sounds like the people doing UAT, the testers, need a specific set of qualities. It's not just about following steps, is it?
Definitely not. Effective UAT testers need, first and foremost, good business knowledge. They have to understand the context.
Know the why.
Exactly. They also need a degree of independence. They should try to think like someone new to this system, an unknown user, not just someone who already knows all the workarounds.
That requires some analytical skills too, I bet. And maybe thinking outside the box.
For sure. Analytical skills and, lateral thinking skills are important for spotting potential issues that maybe weren't explicitly covered in a test case.
So people like business analysts or subject matter experts, the SMEs, they seem like a natural fit, right? Since they know the business inside out.
They often are. They're usually well suited to prepare realistic test scenarios and data precisely because they have that deep business understanding.
Given how important this is, there must be ways to make UAT more successful. Any best practices that stand out?
Yeah, the sources list quite a few good ones. A big one is preparing the UAT plan early in the project lifecycle. Don't leave it till the last minute.
Proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. Also, using a checklist before starting UAT just to make sure all those prerequisites we talked about are actually met.
Double checking everything's ready.
Right. Another interesting one is conducting pre-UAT sessions. Maybe during system testing, get some users involved early to get initial feedback.
Catch things even earlier.
Could save time later. Also, being really clear about expectations and the scope of UAT, what's in, what's out.
Avoid scope creep in testing.
Yes. And focus. Focus on those end-to-end business flows, not getting bogged down in system tests again.
We keep coming back to that business flow focus.
Because it's central to UAT. Test with real-world scenarios, real-world data, like we said. Try to think like that unknown user.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Definitely. And consider usability testing as part of it. Is it just functional, or is it actually easy and intuitive to use?
That's a big factor in acceptance.
Huge. Finally, conduct feedback sessions, have meetings before going live, address any last-minute concerns, make sure everyone's aligned.
It really sounds like a collaborative effort is key. Do tools play a big role here? The sources mentioned one.
Tools can help, though UAT is heavily reliant on the human business perspective. The source mentioned Fitness Tool as an example.
Fitness.
Yeah, it's described as a Java-based engine that uses tables for test inputs and outputs. It's just one example of tools that can structure and automate parts of the testing. Not essential to dive deep, just know they exist.
Okay. And a couple of other quick points from the sources. Where does UAT usually happen?
Typically in that dedicated QA or staging environment we mentioned, the one that mimics production.
Right. And they mentioned alpha and beta testing.
They did, briefly. Classified UAT into those sometimes. But they also noted it's maybe less critical for service-based industries compared to, say, mass market software products.
What seemed more important was customer involvement.
Yes. The more the customer, the end users are involved, the more effective UAT tends to be. Their input is invaluable.
So when we really boil it all down, what's the absolute core benefit? Why should everyone care about doing UAT properly?
The ultimate benefit, and the sources are clear on this, is confidence and clarity. UAT helps the client know exactly what to expect from the final product.
No nasty surprises on release day.
Precisely. It eliminates, or at least drastically reduces, those unwelcome shocks when software gets released without that final user validation. It manages expectations.
So it's really about ensuring the software delivers on its promise, meets those real-world business needs, and aligns with what the client actually requires.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It bridges that crucial gap between development and actual use, massively increasing the chances of a successful launch and happy users.
So to wrap up, user acceptance testing isn't just another box to tick. It's that absolutely vital final check where the software meets its toughest critics, the real-world users. It ensures the tech truly serves its purpose and aligns with business needs.
It really is. And maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. Consider the software you use every day. How might a more rigorous UAT process, or maybe the lack of one, have impacted your own experience?
Ooh, that's a good question. What happens when UAT is overlooked or rushed? What are those consequences? Definitely something to mull over.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully this deep dive has given you a much clearer picture of UAT and its importance in making software work for people. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of technology and development.